I was awoken from my sleep particularly early this morning. Most mornings I was the last to enter the dining hall for breakfast, although it would be up the, hour, the earliest to get his early morning workout in. Then, after showering off, he would begin to prepare the food for the rest of us. As I sat up in my bed, re-entering the conscious world around me and processing my surroundings, I felt as if what had stirred me awake was that of a bad dream. I was irritable and restless, with my eggs dried with moisture, my bags underneath hanging down, casting shadows onto my face. It was the state one would assume to find themselves in after having experienced the night terror, but the longer I dwell on what had startled me awake, the more difficult it became for me to recall. I swung my legs over the side of my bed, slipping my feet into my fluffy slippers that resembled two little brown bears with buttons sewed into their face for eyes. They both had black stitches that were drawn up in little bows, making a small nose and a adorable smile. I stumbled across the carpeted floor, making my way to the white-casted Paldean windows to the my bed. The lilac gossamer curtains had been drawn to block out any premature light that could potentially disrupt me from my sleep. As I peered out past the sheer fabric, I confirmed that this couldn't have been what had woken me up, as the daylight cycle had yet to begin in the digital sphere, and the world outside was still a dim royal blue. A yawn erupted from my chest, traveling up my throat and out of my mouth. My arms stretched wide involuntarily, my feet angling to the tips of my toes, as to copy the same sensation in my legs. Oh well. If I couldn't determine what it was that awakened me, I might as well try to catch as much sleep as I could with the time left remaining of the night. Kicking off my bare slippers, I pulled back the satin covers of my queen-sized bed. Rolling myself back onto the mattress, nuzzling my head into the pillow, I closed my eyes once more, attempting to return back to that sweet, sweet, altered state of consciousness. As I waited for the feeling of sleep to wash over me once more, I noticed what little light did pour into the room suddenly darken. This was odd, as when I had looked at the window just moments before, it was as dark as midnight outside the house. I was tempted to ponder what it was that had led to the sudden darkness. However, in order to keep myself from allowing my brain to become too active, I decided to simply block it out and not to attribute it to any sort of outside forces. Unfortunately, this would only prove to be favorable for so long. Moments later, I was still awake when the most disturbing of these happenings occurred. I was finally beginning to nod off, my face now sinking farther and farther into the pillow. As I descended into my slumber, being so close to the beginning of sleep once more, I had long put the dark shadow which loomed over my figure behind me, and no longer thought anything of it. This was the case until what felt like four bone-like phalanges stroked themselves through my hair like the teeth of a rake. I thought I had flinched instantly at the contact, but the source of the fingers did not falter in the slightest. So perhaps the jolt was only felt internally. My eyes were frozen, wide and frozen. My eyelids remained shut over them, hiding them from the trespasser. Had someone broken into my room, or was this just one of the stars coming in to check up on me in the middle of the night? Though I had never caught him or noticed him doing so, Dream had confessed to slipping into my room late at night now and again, just to make sure I was well. This is what I wanted to believe was happening, that the hands running through my hair belonged to my caring best friend. It was only once I confirmed that I was at peace. But this gesture did not feel so kind or caring or gentle. Something about the duration of those moments and the way the fingers planted themselves between my locks, it felt romantic, possessive even. This person His hand wasn't just patting me softly, but caressing me like a lover would do to soothe their partner. After what felt like forever, I couldn't stand to bear the feeling of being petted so delicately any longer. I pretended to be discomforted, rolling around gently on my back and pulling my bed covers over my shoulder, further rolling at a soft, agonized moan. Luckily, this worked just the way I believed it would, as the hand abruptly retracted itself from my hand. I rolled over onto my other side, facing away from whoever had intruded my bedroom, reaffirming that they wouldn't attempt to violate me once more. This also appeared to do exactly that. As I nodded back into the deep sleep, the ghost of a smile crept into my cheeks as I cradled myself back into the perfect position one last time, almost positive that the figure had left me alone. For the rest of the night, I did not stir again. The events of the following morning just went on just like clockwork. Once I had made my way out of my room, I made my way downstairs to the dining room. While Blue was serving pancakes to Jim and Ink. Ink was already digging into his pancakes, scarfing them down with a vivacity, unlike anyone else I had yet to encounter. Of the four of us, no one admired Blue's pancakes quite as much as him. Thursday mornings had been named Pancake Day a few months prior, and from that point on, it was the only day of the week he truly counted on arriving. Dream, on the other hand, loved the breakfast that his friend made for him, but was not sure when it came to eating them, as he was often found solving the Sudoku problem in the daily newspaper at the same time, which captured his interest significantly more. 3 skulls turned towards me as I entered through the door, taking my place next to Dream at the table. The 3 of them bid me good morning, and Blue Secretary placed a plate of buttermilk pancakes in front of me as I returned to their greeting. "How did you sleep?" Blue asked, sitting down right across from me. Blue asked, sitting down across from me, in the sink to Ink's right. He was untying his apron from behind himself, tearing apart his neatly done up bow and tossing it to the side to hang up later. It was alright, I guess. I woke up randomly in the middle of the night, but I was able to fall back asleep not too long after. I decided to keep the detail about the stranger combing my hair with their fingers out of it, for the fear that one of the 3 would admit to having been in my room so late at night, leading to an awkward lull in the conversation. "So what about you?" I asked in return, hoping to tear my elation from the vague memory. "I slept wonderfully, of course," Blue replied with a wide smile across his face. "When your life is as busy and spontaneous as mine, you can't help but sleep like a rock after a long day of hard, diligent work." I giggled lightly to myself. There went Blue again, using the moment to praise himself for some reason or another. He wasn't narcissistic or arrogant by any means, though one might think so upon first meeting him. Sure, he definitely put himself up on a platform at times, but after knowing him for a while, I have come to understand that Blue feels that his purpose is to lead by example. It was likely a philosophy he had picked up from having to practically raise his younger brother on his own. "That's wonderful, Blue. What about you, Ink?" Ink lifted his head from his plate, wiping syrup from the corner of his mouth with the back of his sleeve. "It was probably fine," he said. "I don't know. I can't remember. I was asleep the whole time." He finished with a shy smile, rubbing the back of his neck vertebrae. Leave it to Ink to be the most relatable of the 3. I could tell he was being genuine with his answer, given his notorious inability to retain memories. At least he was being realistic. I was tempted to turn and ask Dream the same question, however I stopped in my tracks the second I recounted the time Dream had told me he doesn't often go to sleep. With his job being to regulate the dreams of others, he found himself doing the most of this work at night. Besides, he apparently had no use for it anyways. Looking up from his paper, Took small notice of the expression on my face. Offering a warm smile, he laughed as if he was able to read my mind. I had an okay night, YN. I appreciate your curiosity. My face flustered pink at his statement, though I couldn't help but laugh in response. Well, I'm glad to hear that too, I replied. I turned back to look toward all three of them, deciding to change the topic of conversation. Any plans today? Regarding all the vigilante work you guys do so often, I teased. Ink rolled his eyes at me, setting his fork down on his plate. As a matter of fact, we do, Ink said, leaning back in his seat. We plan on infiltrating the villain mob's hideout later this afternoon. Things have been quiet with them recently, so obviously they're cooking up some grand scheme to try and take us down once and for all. So, we're gonna go see what info we can grab about their plans before they have a chance to enact them. Sounds exciting, I said, poking at a piece of my pancake with the prongs of my fork. He nodded. Yes, I suppose so. There was a pause, the air growing thick and tense around the dining room. Lou nervously looked up at Ink from the corner of his eyes as he carefully took a bite of his breakfast. I cleared my throat, mimicking his nodding in a less confident manner, like a lagged reflection. Do you think maybe this is a mission I could tag along on? You thought you'd heard Blue choke on his food. For once, I added in a whisper, already certain that I started off the morning the wrong way by the look of Ink's brow bones knitted at me. Kind of obvious. Absolutely not, he said, his voice firm and unwavering. I tried my best. I watched as he took another bite of his pancakes, avoiding making eye contact with me in a desperate effort to end the conversation right there. Sadly, Frank, he and I both knew that it wasn't going to work out for him. I just don't understand why I started, but didn't get to finish. Ink's highlights flashed red at me instantaneously. The scope, which had formed in his right eye socket, staring at me. Dude. Chill the fuck out. I don't expect you to understand, YN. You are not going, and that is the end of the story. His words were like the growl of a dog. He had not yet attacked me, but the statement was a warning of what was to come had I pressed him any further. Stubborn as I may be, it was too early in the morning to start this kind of fight with someone like Ink. I'd rather not ruin breakfast if the other two still seated at the table. You think? You think. I swear. I love the story, but just... bro. Accepting my silence as recognition. Ink cooled down as well, his shoulders dropping, releasing the tension of the discussion. His glare softened at me, a disheartened sigh escaping his mouth. I just care about you, that's all. I know it that you're miserable being stuck here, but you must stay here where it's safe. He added in a much gentler tone, avoiding looking in your direction once more. I mentally scoffed at that. That's the same excuse he always uses, and in all honesty, it's a little offensive. How? Are they training you or something? I may not have magic or powers or whatever, but I can't stand when he insinuates that I'm too weak. Even if there's truth to it, I can't help but be a little hurt by it. I love the story, don't get me wrong, but if you're trying to go on a mission without any prior training or anything to help you at all, you might as well fucking die. Let natural selection take its place. 'Cause bro, you're gonna have it coming. Needless to say, It was silent at the table for the rest of the morning. Dream was the first to leave, likely uncomfortable with the negative energy we had released into the air. Negative emotions weakened him, so it was in his best interest to walk out when they were let out. Child. We all filed out, one after another, taking our dishes to the sink and washing them off. I'm pretty sure that it meant to the sink, but I'm not gonna. Thanking Blue for preparing the meal. He responded with his trademark hands to his hips, standing in a wide-awake stance. It was an admittedly adorable expression of pride from the adult skeleton, like a small piece of what remained of his former childlike innocence. It was an aspect of him that quite honestly made me envious at times. To still be able to act in such a way and not feel embarrassment over it. Just as Ink had foretold, the four of us were gathered in the grand entryway of the house later that afternoon. The stars were making their final preparations to leave for their spy mission, and I had decided to see them off as I normally did. Are the three of you going with... I hate myself. I cannot speak for the love of me. Are the three of you going to be okay? I asked, concernedly sinking my voice. Don't despair, dear human friend, Blue exclaimed. For the star senses have performed this feat many times before. You will have nothing to fret. We shall be back in time for supper. I giggled in response. We'd best be getting on our way, Ink said. Reaching behind his back, he grabbed his paintbrush by the handle, pulling it into his hands in front of him. He dashed the bristles of the brush across the floor, painting a thick black line onto the hardwood below our feet. With that, he saluted me, leapt into the air, and disappeared through the painted portal he had created. Blue followed hastily after him, eager to get in on the action. I watched Dream, expecting him to jump after them about as quickly as Blue had. When he lingered behind, I tilted my head at him in curiosity. The guardian looked up at me with hesitance, then back at the ground, then back at me again. He began to shuffle towards me, leaning towards my face and heightening my interest. Dream? It was like he had fallen into a trance. Dream didn't respond when I said his name, but continued to stare me down in a hypnotic state. I felt myself grow somewhat nauseous at the excess of attention on me. It was starting to feel warm, and I could feel sweat forming at the roots of my scalp. Dream, was something wrong? Before I could comprehend what was happening, he sped up to me, pulled me in to him by the waist, and pressed a kiss onto my cheek. Just as quickly, the prince sped away, leaping into the portal after the two as if nothing had happened. The black paint closed up after he had disappeared into it, as if it never existed at all. I stood there for several minutes. My eyes were stuck wide open. My hand was still pressed to the same cheek, as I was left to stand there and try to comprehend what had just happened. Oh my god.